Do you have some projects that have been hanging out in the back that you now have time to move forward? Stay tuned for Backburner Breakthroughs. Hi, Shannon Waller here, and welcome to Team Success. Today, what we're going to talk about, and I'm recording this during our COVID-19 pandemic, so this is relevant for the current time that we're in. I want to talk to you about something we're calling at Coach Backburner Breakthroughs. And this is something that I am particularly excited about. And I've actually done an interview with Dan Sullivan. So if you want to check that out, I would suggest going to strategiccoach.com, and under our resources section, you will see a whole segment on scary times. And actually, I'm going to walk you through an exercise that I really think you would be brilliant to do with your team, because I'm really excited about this for Coach, and I'm excited about this for you. There are things that you have been thinking about as a person, as a team member, and as a team leader, and as a member of your company's maybe even been thinking about doing, that have been on the back burner because they were not a priority when things were quote-unquote normal. In our old normal, they were on the back burner. Well, guess what? Old normal is no longer. We are now in what we're calling scary times here at Strategic Coach, which is not irrelevant. That's pretty pertinent right now. And then we need to build towards a new normal. And so there's a lot of projects that people are finding that have been kind of simmering, down low, that all of a sudden it's like, this might be the right time to do this. You've undoubtedly innovated some brand new things as well in terms of, again, if you're one of those businesses that's super busy, then you're creating a whole bunch of new stuff. And then if you're one of those businesses that is in the opposite end, you've had to innovate just to stay alive and keep the lights on, doors open. So again, you're going to be somewhere on that spectrum. It's a big deal. And regardless, we're all going to have to do new things because there'll be a new normal that require new hygiene levels, new ways of operating with one another just to keep everyone safe. So the old normal isn't happening anymore. So now is the time where we can start having some fun with those ideas that have been parked for a long time. So I want to encourage you to do some thinking, first of all, for yourself, but then also with your team. This is a great one to do together, to think about, okay, what are those things that have been kind of latent and, again, in the back of your mind, even maybe on a parking lot list. That's what we call it in our meetings. Let's parking lot that for a while because the timing wasn't right. Well, guess what? Timing might be right now. So this is the time where you want to do that. So how the exercise starts out, and again, you can download this from Scary Times, the resources page on our strategiccoach.com site. So I'm simply going to walk you through it. You could also grab a piece of paper. That would work fine too. I think our version's pretty, but that's completely up to you. So you start with this brainstorming list. So these are ideas you have about new capabilities, resources, and opportunities to develop sometime in the future. So you've thought about this before, but it was kind of maybe a fleeting thought. Maybe you captured it, maybe you didn't. Well, now's the time to kind of bullet point those out and list them. You're not describing each one yet in totality, you're simply itemizing what it is. So once you've got your list, and this is a great thing to do within your own actual team, it's also a great thing to do on your leadership team, it's also a great thing to do as a company, depending on your size. Yeah, that would be a super fun chat to have in our Slack channel, all of the back burner ideas that you've had. And now what you want to do is to start to figure out which ones are you going to take action on. Some of them are, guess what, are going to stay back burner. Maybe you don't have the resources, maybe you don't have the time, maybe you don't have, just even the will to do it, but there are going to be some of the things that you identify that are going to be super relevant right now. You're like, oh my gosh, now is the time to do this. So what you want to do is choose 3 that we call move to the front. So you've taken them from the back burner and you're moving them to the front burner. This is where I'm going to turn up the heat. What are the things that you're actually going to take action on? So whatever those ideas are, and it could be a possible collaboration with somebody, it could be, again, a new capability, a new technology, a new way of doing things. Talking to a great client in Australia who runs a PR firm, she was doing kind of one-on-one consulting with people, but recognizing that she was saying the same thing to 25 different people in a day. And so she kind of put everyone onto a morning call about the state of how things were going. She talks regularly to CEOs and business owners and head of industry. And so she kind of really pulls together everything that she's picking up and shares it and gets everyone to sign into this particular call. So she's actually figured out how to do group consulting all of a sudden as opposed to, just the one-on-one that she was doing. So that's something that had been in the back of her brain. But now with the changing circumstances and people needing just-in-time information, situation, it was the perfect time to institute this. And as far as she's concerned, she doesn't actually want to go back, which I think is really interesting. So, new processes, new ways of doing things. For us at Strategic Coach, we've always been a live in-person workshop. Very, very few things, a couple team things we've done. We have an online program called the Team Success Video Series. And then also we do one of our programs called the Strategic Assistant Webinar Program. Those are the only two things that are virtually based or digitally delivered, as our friend Mike Koenig says. But that's it. Other than that, we're all live. Well, guess what? We're now virtual, which is really fun. We've been having a great time in delivering, we got great feedback from it that way. Some virtual mini workshops, and now we'll be transitioning to longer, more full-day workshops. We'll see what that looks like. But that's a massive new capability for us that's been in the back of our brain, but we always said no. Well, now the answer is yes. So that's kind of exciting for Coach. So what are those ideas for you that you want to move to the front? Now you want to get into the why and the when, and this is really interesting. So you want to write down here reasons why right away is the right time to make these improvements and deadlines for completion. Without a deadline, it's just a dream. So unless there's actually a deadline, our brains don't go into kind of problem-solving mode about how to make it happen. And the why is what it's really important that we are all articulate the why for ourselves and for one another, because otherwise people don't engage their talents to help you. And one of our concepts at Coach, which I've talked about before, is called who, not how. There's certain parts of any project that we're best at and lots of it that we're not. And so we need other who's who are superb at the areas that we're not in order to complete any kind of scaled project. I can do small things by myself, capable, but if I want to do something bigger, I'm going to need some other who's. And looking at it that way as opposed to just a standard delegation means, are you actually letting that person give their creativity and their capabilities, and how they do it is their way, not yours, because you're not them. You don't have their skill set. But what they need to know is the why, and they need to know the when. So super important that you articulate that for the team, for yourselves. Our tool for that, by the way, is called the Impact Filter, available in our, you can download that too from the site. Look for our book, The Extraordinary Impact Filter, because that's where we talk about how to communicate the why and the what and the when, and then you leave the how up to those amazing humans who have complementary skills and talents to what we have. So you want to get really clear on that. And then you want to identify who are your best who's. As I was just talking about, it's your idea or your team's, but the fastest way to achieve these improvements is to have other unique ability who's to do many of the important hows that I was just mentioning. So really identifying who is your team, who are the talents, and they can be internal to your company, they could be collaborations externally in terms of other great talented people that you know in your network, in your sphere. So it's making sure that you connect internally and externally with the right people with the right talent. And it's really fun because there's a lot of talented people out there, more than ever, in terms of who you're looking for. I know people right now who are hiring. Not everyone's doing that, especially in the social media realm, especially in terms of digital marketing. So I know some people are expanding in that particular area because that's the world we're living in now, which is kind of interesting. So we've done the brainstorming, we've done which ones you're going to move to the front, and I'd suggest 3 out of your list. Articulate the why and the when and the best who's. Well, the next thing you need to figure out is what action are you going to take? So insights, ideas, decisions, actions, this is where you really get to collaborate on how you're going to get something done. And I just want to recommend another great coach tool, which is available to you even if you're not in Strategic Coach, and that is something we call the Strategy Circle. And Dan did a great quarterly book on that called My Life is a Strategy Circle. And in that, you identify the goal, what you want to have happen, which, by the way, if you've done the impact filter, you've already figured that out. You've also figured out the result, which is what does it look like when it's done and done really, really well. And then where most people's brains go to is the obstacles and then the strategies. So it's really important here to validate those people on your team, especially if it's not you, who are really good at figuring out what's in the way of you accomplishing the goals. As Dan says and has always said, obstacles are actually the raw material for you accomplishing your goals. Without knowing the obstacles, you will trip over them. And I know because I have, because I tend to see about 3 when there might be 10. Right? So some of those other ones come back to bite me. And so when I talk to other people, I'm like, oh, I never thought about that. Didn't think about that either. And it's really empowering for people when you're like, okay, great, awesome obstacle. And they're like, what? no one's ever told me awesome obstacle before. They're like, really? You're like, yeah, that was really good. We have to figure that out in order to make this happen. They're like, ooh, thanks, right? So it's really critical to validate people who, they're not saying it to be negative, they're saying it because it's an obstacle. But the great thing about the strategy circle is it actually gives a context for, okay, that's the obstacle. Now let's come up with the strategy. No one gets to be just a negative Nelly in terms of being a dampener on this. This is okay, good. Now that you've clearly identified the obstacle, what's an idea that you have for solving it? And that's really the most entrepreneurial column. So this is a great way to develop everyone's entrepreneurial muscles, is transforming that obstacle into a strategy into which you can take action. So, with the back burner breakthroughs, you want to identify those key projects. You want to identify the why and the when. Again, impact filter, brilliant coach tool to help you do that. And then, with your who's, get them all together and figure out, okay, now that we've got the goal and the result, what are all the obstacles? Brainstorm those, and then together come up with all the great strategies. And this is where you want to coach everyone to be resourceful. One of the things I find interesting is that being resourceful is actually what Dr. Brad Smart calls the number one characteristic of an A player. So an A player is the best talent you can get at that particular pay level. But the number one characteristic, and by the way, top grading's a tome of about 700 plus pages, but it boils down to being resourceful. And this is where, really figuring out the strategies for those specific obstacles, but they have to be specific. If they're not delineated, they're too hard to figure out what the solution is. So if there's something, an obstacle, you're like, I can't figure it out. It's like, good, break it down. It's going to be a lack of time, money, relationship, capability. It can also be fear. Fear is a very valid obstacle. So you want to make sure that you really handle both the intellectual and emotional sides of all of that, but break it down so it's really specific. And once it's specific, someone that you know or someone that they know is going to have a solution for that, but only if you're kind of focused on being resourceful. So I get super excited about these back burner breakthrough because I love new things. I'm the bright, shiny object person, but I also love when ideas that kind of didn't have a lot of oxygen before, all of a sudden you breathe new life into them and it's like, oh, that's incredible. I love that. And now is the time to experiment and to test. Like, we have more freedom now to do new things in a new way than we have had in a very, very long time, if ever. So now is the time for these back burner breakthroughs to kind of come to life. Not all of them will work. That's okay. You're going to learn something from every single one of them. Keep track of your learnings. Test, test, test is the marketing rule. And that's what you want to be doing. So have some fun with this. And I know for me, I'm excited because I want to put in place some capabilities. You're going to learn what works and what doesn't work as you move virtual, which a lot of people have, obviously, working from home, etc. You'll realize what part of your systems are stable and which ones you have some gaps. Another great resource is my interview with Nick Sonnenberg, which is about 6 tips for how to make remote work actually work. How to make remote work work is, I think, actually the proper title. So you definitely want to check that out because that's a back burner breakthrough project for me that I want to move to the front because I'm excited. It's really clear to see where we were just relying on the fact I could walk across the hall and ask somebody where something is. Well, now they're across the city or in a different province or a different state. And so now I can't do that. Technological systems and upgrading those so that we can all kind of know what we need to do and not do what Nick calls the scavenger hunt. That's one of the back burner breakthroughs for me. So it might be for you too. And he's got brilliant knowledge and expertise around what he calls a CPR framework, which is communication, projects, and resources, and how you organize those for maximum efficiency. He's an efficiency hound. He's a guru. He loves it. He geeks out on that stuff, which I don't. So I like when I know someone else who does. But that might be one of your back burner breakthroughs. And there's a phenomenal resource for you because Nick's amazing. So I hope you're excited. As you can tell, I am, because I think this is a great opportunity to upgrade our companies, upgrade our communication, upgrade our resourcefulness, upgrade our value creation, and how we can be useful to our clients. So if you're excited about that too, now's the time to bring some of those back burner projects to the front and figure out the buy when, the why, and the who's who are going to help you do that. All right. Now it's time for you to get working on your projects. So again, you can download that exercise at strategicoach.com under our resources page and go to Scary Times. You'll see it there. And I'm excited because I can't wait to hear about all the new innovations that companies are doing to respond kind of gracefully in this kind of really unpredictable time. So thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know at questions@strategicoach.com. And as always, here's to your team success.